forget when we get to the end of the year or the beginning of the year and we do these audits from our previous year, and I just get excited going back and looking where we were and creating the game plan of how we're going to get to where we want to go. You look fine. You need to iron the collar, a little starch.
All right.
He's ready. He's ready, everybody.
Ready. So what about that? What you said, you were going through stats, you said, and
yeah, just hitting stats with clients, on where, and look, in all fairness, I mean, I know we're at the 20th of January, right? But some people are getting their numbers together from all of last year to find out their enrollments, their students lost, their attrition, their average student value. And, once we've got some key metrics with 3 or 4 different, metrics, we can really create a great game plan moving forward based on the individual school. Because everyone's different. Everyone thinks they need more students, right? Which we all need more students, of course. But there's some other things that we really can do to lever up faster, just depending on the school. It's interesting because we've got schools that need to work on, if they just work on retention, there's going to be a big bump for them this year, like tens of thousands of dollars. Other schools, they're like, for example, my school and the other schools I consult, one of my locations, you sit at a 3.1% attrition with a $200 student value. That is just more students, and then creating the game plan to how to get there, and just backing everything out it's exciting.
100%. I mean, if people, you said it best. I love the saying, man, that you hate. What'd you say? You hate keeping the numbers, but you love analyzing the numbers.
I hate data entry, but I love analyzing it. Yeah.
Yeah. So. We're gonna give a golden nugget for all these people today.
Well, that's good. Finally, huh? I bet they're all saying finally.
Well, I just, I've been reading the fan mail and we just haven't been given any good information. So I thought maybe we'll give them a golden nugget today. After having superstars on and legends like Ernie Reyes Jr. and doing the entertainment thing, I thought, let's give them something to really help them out.
There you go. There you go.
It's interesting. I'd love to ask this question, but I won't ask it yet just because, hey, everybody, people that are joining us, jump on, join the party, relax, and shut the brain off for 45 minutes to an hour and a half, depending on how long you decide to go today.
Or an hour and 40 minutes.
Hey, man. I do the jujitsu thing every day, right? But I made it a point every Tuesday and Thursday doing a lot of kicking drills, getting the kicking back. Man, I'm fast.
Well, I thought I was fast too till I watched myself in a video one time.
I didn't know you can pull a hamstring in the calf muscle. I didn't know that. Herbie, Master Perez.
Hey, what's up?
I haven't seen you on here in a long time, my friend. But I did respond to your text message. Yes, not faster than Herbie. But no, man, doing the kicking.
You do a lot.
Hey, let me just say this, Herb. The little drill you had our guys do. So every kicking workout I do, everyone, I make it a point to do. A couple of days ago, I did 150, nonstop on the paddles, just the pop, pop, pop. I remember when you had our guys do that. Today at the end, I did 100 of them. And the goal is to get to 200, and then maybe 250. I don't know if I want to go to 300 on those. Those are killer, especially when you do them at the end. But it's you that I think about when I do that, just to get the muscles working again.
Front kicks?
Yeah, holding two paddles. Yeah, holding two paddles. Then they're just pop, 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 pop. Doing 100 at the end. It's good stuff. Good stuff. But look at all these. Look at all these comments just flying in. I'll pull my muscles too. It's so funny. Anyway, The kicking, I swear to God, jiu-jitsu is easier on my body than the Taekwondo kicks.
Dude, well, you remember, back in the day, well, Mr. Perez created that bag, right? The bag that goes at the 45 for the round kicks, the flip round kicks, right? My hips, I don't know if my hips can handle that. I mean, the front kicks I could do, but I don't know if my hips can handle the round kicks, man. Yeah, for sure.
So I don't know if I can handle anything anymore. Anyway, let's talk about this, guys. Get your notepads. And I see good morning.
Up,
the black man on. Mr. Schwartz. He's walking in here as if there's an emergency.
No, it's identity theft. You're not Michael Perry.
Oh.
I'm not allowing this.
You can say everybody wants to be like Mike, but that's both of you, so it doesn't work.
Identity theft is a serious thing, guys.
Wow, he ran in here like as if.
Yeah.
As if we had 33 people watching live.
Right.
Okay, so listen. Here's the deal. I went over this with the Blackmans. I went over this with all of our team. And I in the title of this show, Tass, if you didn't look at the marketing and the advertising, is Don't Let Your Guard Down. Oh, is it? Good. All right.
Yeah, it's everywhere. Yeah.
But here's what everyone should do. Here's what everybody should do. So get your pen and paper or your phones and laptops or iPads. And this is about analyzing numbers, right? Everybody should go back to 2019, not 2020, but 2019, and break your 2019 year into quarters. Okay, first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter. And what was your highest grossing quarter? What was your second highest grossing quarter? Third highest grossing, and your worst quarter, revenue-wise, by quarter. Then do that with enrollments. What was your best enrollment quarter? Your second most enrollment quarter, third worst enrollment quarter. Then do that with your attrition rate. Because a lot of times when we go back and look at numbers, we look at it for the year, right? We say, like Tass, you said it right at the beginning of the show. I had a school that had a 3.1% attrition, 3.4% attrition rate last year. Well, that doesn't mean it was 3.4 throughout the year, right? So maybe one quarter you had a 1% attrition rate, one quarter you had a 5 or more, right? We don't know. We got to break down the quarters. So the first thing, hey, Ms. Perez. So the first thing is we want to look at the revenue. Now, here's why that's so important, everybody. Here's why that's so important. When the pandemic hit, right at the end of the first quarter of 2020. Now, remember, I wanted you to rank your quarters from 2019, not 2020. But when the pandemic hit in 2020, it was at the end of the first quarter. Okay. So then we had our second, third, and fourth quarter. What you want to do is, under normal circumstances, without a pandemic, what's our highest grossing quarters? For us, fourth quarter is the highest grossing quarter. Third quarter is the second highest grossing quarter. First quarter is the third, second quarter is our worst. Okay, that's us. For a lot of you, it may be different. Let me tell you why that is the way it is with us. In the fourth quarter, we have a big holiday sale. So that really pushes the revenue up, which makes our fourth quarter our best quarter. In the third quarter, we have a Christmas and July sale plus the back to school season, which pushes up revenue. Okay. And then first and second is what it is, depending upon when you pre-sell your mini camps, summer camps, or private lessons, summer, whatever you do in the summer. We typically get those all done in the first quarter of the year, which pushes revenue up. And second quarter is our worst grossing quarter. But here's the problem. In 2020, okay, most of us were floundering in April, May, June, right? Because we still didn't know what's going on with this pandemic, especially like April. Like some of us thought we'll be back to normal school, go back in May. Maybe it'll go back in June. So it was kind of a hit or miss quarter for a lot of people. But once we realized this is going to be for the long haul, some of you rode this pandemic out during your best grossing quarters, the third and the fourth quarter. And what I've heard from the industry is people that have been down, for example, we were down 20% or whatever percent you were down. You were down, but you didn't realize that you were down X percent on your best quarters per se, right? Well, now what you need to do is break your quarters out in 2020. What was your highest grossing quarter in 2020? Second, third, and fourth. Where did you have most of your enrollments? Which quarter? First, second, third, or fourth, and number them. And your retention. When you look at all of that, where were you going into 2021, which is right now? What percent were you down fourth quarter of 2020 to fourth quarter of 2019? So if you look at fourth quarter of 2020 and you say we were down 22% compared to fourth quarter in 2019, well, that means you were going into 2021 down 20%, okay? Or whatever that is. Some of you were up maybe, right? But if you were down and you're saying, we survived, we were down, but, we still paid all the bills. We still hung in there. We were fine. The problem is you were fine because you were, and I'm making this up as an example, you were 20% down off of one of your best quarters. But how are you going to fare if you're 20% down because we're still in this pandemic, even though we see light at the end of the tunnel? What's going to happen if you're 20% down on your first quarter, which may have been one of your worst grossing quarters? And I don't know if that's the case or not, but you need to dive into your numbers to see, because you may have gotten a false sense of security thinking you survived even though you were down and you paid the bills. But that won't be the case if that trend carries over for the first quarter of this year, at least, and if you're down on one of your worst quarters, if that makes sense. Task, can you clean that up for me, or is that making sense?
No, that makes sense. It makes perfect sense. I was just pulling up numbers here based on what you're saying, because the great news for us, our location that did the worst of the two locations for last year is actually going to be up by 30% for the first month of this year, which is fantastic news.
That is, but you would never know anything,
right?
If you weren't keeping numbers, and this is why it's so important to keep numbers. Now, then you want to look at your trends, 2019 and 2020, as far as where did the majority of our enrollments come? First, second, third, or fourth. For the majority of you, it's going to be third quarter, which is back to school time, right? For the majority of you.
And even through the pandemic, because we weren't enrolling people March, April, May, June. Most of us, some of us were, but because people just weren't sure what to do, and they weren't enrolling as quickly. I mean, we noticed that in both of our schools, right? We had very slow enrollment, and then starting September, the numbers picked up quite a bit.
And by the way, if they picked up quite a bit and you had momentum going into the third, fourth quarter, that should carry over into the first quarter. And our goal should be based upon the trend that we're on, the projection that we're on. But a lot of you weren't on a super great projection, but I don't know. And nobody knows. Only you would know if you know your numbers. You don't know, school owners out there, you don't even know if you're not keeping your numbers. You cannot guess. You cannot say, well, we were picking up by the fourth quarter. Well, picking up in the fourth quarter may just be because fourth quarter is one of your highest grossing quarters, and you happen to generate extra revenue accidentally. But that's why you got to compare fourth quarter to fourth quarter. We don't want to compare fourth quarter to third quarter or second quarter of the same year, because then you may have a false sense of momentum. But you gotta be honest with yourself and know what you're up against to prepare to make sure that we change the course of where we're going and that we are okay, in the first quarter. Okay. So does anyone have any questions on that? Because I just felt that it was very important for everybody to do and dive into. And by the way, it's also on a retention deal. That's why I said, look at 2019 when there was no pandemic. Where was your worst attrition rates? Now, I think I know as the industry, I know where that typically is, right? But check for your own school on where your highest attrition rate was as far as where you lose the most students. You lose the most students in the first quarter, second, third, fourth, and then rank them 1, 2, 3, and 4. Just so you know, because if all was normal and we weren't in a pandemic, you would want to know that, because wouldn't it be great to know that second quarter is our worst retention quarter of the year? Well, if you know that, you can start making a plan to combat that, to fix that, which would make an astronomical difference in your business. But specifically now that we are in a pandemic, we can't afford to lose. Look, all the students that stayed with you through this pandemic, if you have a normal attrition problem in the first or second quarter, all the people that stayed with you, you know that even under normal circumstances, people leave in the first or second quarter in your school if that's what it is, right? But you need to know that, because that's going to create another problem that we got to come up with solutions for. So I want to make sure that you guys are on top of that stuff. And like you said, Cass, it takes a lot of discipline to dive into the numbers, but when you have them, you're just like, oh, this is unbelievable. You can learn so much about where your business is, where it's going, and what you need to do.
Absolutely. And all those quarters that you mentioned, those add up to a lot of dollars. I mean, you mentioned a lot of quarters, quarter. That's a lot.
Right.
But on a serious note, you know, in order to do what you're asking everyone to do right now, they have to have tracked their numbers. And so we may have even had people jump off like, I can't do that because I don't have my numbers. Well, you should stay on because you need to get your numbers. And, you know, we were talking to Ernie Jr. last week, and he's like, I've been hearing the same thing for 30 years. He's like, I was in the schools and it goes in one ear and out the other ear. And he said now he's engaged in tracking numbers. And so we can't continue to try and develop a business and be surprised at the end of the year if we make a profit, or surprised if we lose money, right? And so what I would tell you is this, just like I said, I can't stand entering numbers, and it's not hard. We all know it's not hard, which is the reason why it doesn't get done. Most of us can take our CRM at the end of the night. And if you don't have a resource for this, by the way, we have a finance sheet on the My Edge site, which literally tracks all your revenue goals. We have traffic stats, all that stuff. But literally at the end of the night, you go on your CRM, you go, oh, here's what we did for billing. Here's what we did for retail. Here's what we did for down payment. And you just type it in. It's literal, honest to God, it's a 2-minute job. But because it's only a 2-minute job, we're like, it's not that important. I'll get it later. And then a week goes by, a month goes by, and pretty soon a quarter goes by and the year goes by. And you're like, dang, how did we get here? Because we can't go back and fix anything because we don't know where we are statistically. So it's okay, in my opinion, it's okay for you to have somebody at the end of the night that whether it's a leadership student or somebody in your school, just enter those numbers in for you. So at least you've got the data that you can start to do. And some of you are going to say, well, I have the data. It's in Rainmaker. It's in Perfect Mind. It's in Spark. It's in this program, that program. But you can't analyze the data. Why am I saying this? Because when I was a client, Metzger would ask me these questions. They'd be like, well, dude, hang on. I'll get it for you. I'll get the information for you. And I would have to go and select it and run the report. And then when I switch CRMs, you don't own that data anymore. It's gone. So you want to extract all of your data, get it onto spreadsheets in a one sheet where you can see everything in front of you. There's something to be said about having that one sheet because you can see the ups, the downs, the ebbs, the flows. And that one thing for me, man, made a huge difference in being able to analyze the numbers for the school without looking back and going, well, yeah, I can tell you what we did in January. Here, let me go back to my dashboard history. Let me put in January. Oh, well, here's what we did. There's something to be said about comparing month to month or year over year, month over month, year over year. There's a lot of different things that you can do when you've got that stuff in a spreadsheet. And this is where it gets fun, because if you can just start tweaking things by 5%, 7%, 10%, well, all those percentages don't just add up. They become exponential because of how you're doing everything. And that's where you really can explode and grow your school. And that's why I get excited. It's not a fun topic, right? Especially when you don't keep numbers. You're like, I'm not listening to this. But it's extremely interesting and fascinating to me. And the numbers, look, always say it, the numbers don't lie. And you can really project where you can be by making some tweaks and then stay disciplined about doing it. And then at the end of the year, you're like, man, the small changes, the small incremental changes that you make become monumental. And literally the 2 minutes that you spend every night or your team spends every night entering numbers can add up to tens of thousands of dollars for you at the end of the year, because you're driving the ship and you're like, oh, we're off a little bit. Let's get back on course. Oh, we're off a little. Let's get back on course. And that's the power in knowing those numbers and keeping the numbers.
Well, let me ask a question, and everybody here watching should participate. I mean, unless you're shy and not confident, then you need martial arts. But put a thumbs up if your January is going as well or better than you expected. Put a thumbs down if it's not, on what you currently were thinking.
Are you thinking bets, or are you talking enrollments, or whatever they feel is better or worse?
An overall good month, the overall month of January, whatever that is to you. Is it going as well or better than expected? Thumbs up, or not as well as you would expect or as you were expecting? Put a thumbs down. So Miss Kinsey Flame with 4 thumbs up. And while they're doing that, everybody put a thumbs up or a thumbs down, guys. I mean, I can tell you this, thumbs down.
Humor Metzger. He's trying to get engagement.
Yeah. Don't humor Metzger. Humor our social media expert, Chris Rodriguez.
Right.
You know, good.
Someone's going to pop a middle finger in there, and that'll be their up.
Yeah, that's right. That'll be their down. And Mr. Bodica, sir, I have us down tomorrow to talk at 11 a.m. I hope that's the right time, sir. And I see your thumbs down, so we're going to have to fix that.
Mr. Schwartz, Control Command Spacebar gets you the little emojis so you can put the thumb up. Only joking, guys.
All right. So look, we have downs, we have ups, downs, ups, downs, up, down, up. Mr. Munding, thumbs up. Mr. Costa, Mrs. Down, and
Mr. Sky. Mr. Sky almost did it. He put the finger up.
Hey, so the thing is,
hold on. Someone asked a question. It's been a bit windy. Good.
There have definitely been some hoops. We're thinking outside the box. We're getting there.
Go back to Mr. Sky's comment, and because my memory isn't good today. Are you separating them? If so, why? We currently add them together. And I'm not sure what that question was, Mr. Sky. My apologies. I don't know what we were talking about when you asked that question.
Are you separating them? The quarters, you mean, or? Yeah, re-ask, sir.
Yeah, just so we know.
And by the way, Mr. Sky is in the My Elite CMA family. He has direct lines to us too. All right, so everybody, look at your thumbs up, thumbs down. Now listen, here's the problem. Not the problem. I don't want it to be a problem. Today is the 21st of the month. If it's a thumbs down, that the month is not going as well as you were expecting, okay? Now TAS is the question. Is it revenue? Is it retaining? Is it enrollments? What is it? And whatever it is, let's get to work, focus on it, sit down for an hour and start coming up with ways that you can fix that area. If it's revenue, what can I do to help with revenue? It could be anything from a gear sale to a uniform sale to a special event that I'm going to do in the park if I'm not even open, to private lesson packages that anybody who buys 10 or more, it's this price, and it can be virtual or live, and it's only good for the first 5 students. Like, you got to start writing down things that can generate some revenue. 2, you know what? I'm going to revisit in my upgrade list, and I'm going to personally call some people that I feel it should upgrade that I talked to last year. If you have an upgrade list, right? If it's enrollments, you do the same thing. What can I do right now in the short term to get some new students? Now, You make a list, but I will give you this. Tass, you and I just talked about it. To get new students, talk about the phone calls.
What phone calls?
Well, that's the past we were talking about. We're talking about the present where there's phone
Oh,
calls.
Yeah. Make calls, guys. Make calls. Is that what you want me to tell them?
Yeah, moving on.
All right. So, listen, all my client calls this month, but I just got off the phone with a client, and he's like totally in, like, he's like, this is amazing, right? And I'll come to the call thing in a second, but it's amazing because even Metz and I, we sat down for 2 hours to go through attrition. And
let me just mention this. No, Mr. Sky, once you have the total attrition, then you should separate it. How was your retention rate virtually? And how was your retention rate with people that were coming in live if you were able to do live? And then you want to see where that is. Is there a bigger attrition on the virtual students or on the live students? And what's the disparity there so we can dive into that and fix that? But go ahead.
If attrition is better on virtual, then just go all virtual. No, I'm kidding.
Whoa, exactly.
But no, it's just the fun part for me is diving into these things because people really get a clear picture. But even when you have your numbers, right, it's important to understand how to analyze the numbers. And I had all the numbers, and we sat for 2 hours and we were going through numbers the other day. And when you have it, you can do those types of things. But sometimes, even when we look at things, sometimes at face value, we've got to peel back other layers of what other potential challenges or what are some of the other solutions to be able to get to fix that problem. So a lot of you, and I know this because I go through this with clients, you may track your numbers, but you may not know how to figure different things out and what the different metrics are and what is the easiest switch to flip in your school to get to where you need to go, right? And then you said, is it attrition? Is it more enrollments? Is it we got to increase our student value? And we'll bring it up, but is that upgrades? Is it private lesson packages? There's so many things that we can be doing, but I dealt with a school where literally all they need to do is focus specifically on their upgrade program, right? And I know not all of you do that. There's other ways to do it, but it would have generated an extra $70,000 a year in this school, which is, by the way, has an active count of 155 students. No new students are needed to do that, right? It's internal. So we can see, are your internal business systems broken? Because you don't want to just go market if you have internal business systems that are broken. So one of our broken internal business systems is on the enrollment side. And I've said it forever. I mean, we have, the good news is we've collected a lot of leads, since, and I started my school 25 years ago, right? So we've got prospects in our system forever. But here's the thing, because, and my team may watch this and they know this, right? Because they're a younger generation, they're big on texting, they're big on, the phone stuff as far as anything their thumbs can do. They're not big on picking up the phone and calling. And so we've had this conversation over and over that how important the phone still is in generating new traffic to the school. Because at the end of the day, we need traffic, right? Everybody needs traffic. So I said, I just mapped this out. Like, guys, if we just make 25 calls a day, that's 125 calls a week. That's 6,000 calls over the course of the year. Well, as we're doing these calls, right? First of all, Monday, Tuesday, it didn't happen. Then Wednesday, I had to get on them. And we made 20 of the calls, not 25, but we made 20 of the calls. And they picked up the phone and they called, which was great. Well, out of the calls, they contacted 5 people. 20 calls, they got a hold of 5 people. 3 of the 5 people booked appointments. The next day, 20 calls went out, 6 people answered, 3 more booked appointments. The other school, they made 3 calls, booked 3 appointments. The next day, they made 2 calls, booked 1 appointment. My point is this, by picking up the telephone consistently over time and just reaching out to people. I know it's a game, right? But it's the work, and we've talked about this, it's the work that gets the results. And we've got to understand that. It's not hard to pick up the phone and call 25 people when only 5 people answer the phone. And then when you see those results, out of 20 calls, right? We had 5 people pick up. Well, what's the math on that? Metz is that 20 people. That's a 25%. That's 25% of the people picked up, right? So 25% of the people. So if I take 6,000, right, and I only talk to 6,000 calls for the year, Monday through Friday, if I take 6,000 calls and I say, okay, only 25% of them are actually going to pick up the phone, that's 1,500 people that you'll have talked to over the course of the year. But this number sounds so big, but when you break it down to 25 calls, it's 1 hour a day. But out of the 1,500, these guys are booking as a company 70 to 80%. But let's just say they only book 50%. So times
750.
That's 750 booked appointments. Let's say you have a horrible show rate and you only get 50% to show up. That's 375 that show up. And let's say you have a horrible close rate and only 50% of the people close. That's 187 new students in your school. Now, for us, our locations, on average, typically have a $200 to $210 student value, right? Typically. But let's just figure you're at $185 student value just because that's what we tell everybody. You should be at 185 or minimum. So 187 students. Am I yelling? Because I feel like I'm yelling. It's $35,000 a month in revenue times 12 months is $416,000 a year for doing what? For making 1 hour of calls every day. And you can reverse engineer the math however you want to, but that is the power of the compound effect and doing the small things that need to be done every day consistently.
And it's absolutely real. The problem is, what you guys are going to say is, I don't have that many leads, right? And that's
good news is only 25% are picking up, so you can call them back.
That's right. You got to know how to go out and get leads. You need to know how to generate leads. And we're not going to get into all of that because there's the 5 levels of marketing and there's all different ways to get leads, but you got to stay mentally strong if only 25% of people actually set up an appointment, right? Because the majority of your time is going to be no answers and no's, and then that's going to convince you that phone calls don't work. When it does work, it works like he just broke it down. So anyway, now I want to ask a question, everybody. So call your friends.
Hey, by the way, Matt, let me just give us one more metric. The $416,000 in revenue divided by 6,000 calls. Doesn't matter if they hang up on you, if they curse you out, if they don't answer, you leave a message, it doesn't matter. Every call you make is worth $69. Every phone call that you make, $69, $69, $69, $69. Like, I think that's motivating, right? Like, what? Just go make the calls. It doesn't matter if they pick up or don't pick up. Statistically, that call is worth almost $70. That's big. That's big.
Yes,
anyway,
sir.
That was it. Yes.
Are you
Sorry,
okay now? You're like me yesterday.
I know, man. I'm getting all red. I'm flushed.
Do you need to drink?
No, I'm drinking the
Not
bang.
to drink. I mean, a drink. Not do you need to drink? Sorry. How does it work if you're in new school and working a full-time job? Well, if you work at Amazon, you got hundreds of thousands of flyers you can hand out to your colleagues. You know, if you work at a small company, here's the deal, and that's a great question, sir. What I told people, depending on what your goals are, Mr. Thompson, depending on what your goals are, if you want to transition this into a full-time career, then when you have a full-time job, you got to hit the weekends and let your time off. When you're not working the full-time job, you got to be working on your martial arts school and generating business to come into the school in the evening, and build up your clientele to the point where you can pull away from the full-time job if that's your goal. If that's your goal, right? And by the way, weekends are a great time to generate leads. They really are, but it's sweat equity. The other thing you could do is you can invest in yourself and you could pay to do more social media marketing to drive leads. And then you hit these leads every single night and call them back, set up appointments, ask them to come in and try classes out in the evening when you're at your school. So those are the, and that's just 2 examples, but it's that kind of thinking. And then you got to set a goal on what do I need to be doing in this school to be able to feel secure enough to quit my full-time job. Again, only if that's what you want to do. And some people don't. Some people love having the security of their full-time job, and they love having their martial arts school, because it's their passion. So,
yeah, I mean, you said it, but to your point, I mean, look, I've always had a great deal of respect for people that work full-time jobs and run their martial arts school, because you're working 40, 50 hours a week. Then you're going in to teach at night, whatever, even if it's a part-time school, 2, maybe 3 hours a night. And then you got to market the school and you got to do all this stuff. That's a lot of work, man. And so, there's only 2 ways you're going to grow your school, right? You either got to put in, you got to pay with sweat equity, like you said, or you got to pay money. And I think martial arts schools, maybe there's others, but we're one of the few businesses that actually go into business and don't really have 6, 8, 10, 12 months set aside of here's what our payroll is, all of our expenses, here's our marketing capital that we're going to use, here's all that stuff. We just don't do that. But if you were able to do that, and you could go out and spend $1,000 a month on Facebook ads or social media and work and have the money to be able to do that, that saves you from having to go out and do all the time stuff. And now you're just dealing with people coming in and teaching intros. But if you don't have the money, then you got to put in the time, right? And those are the 2 options.
So Tass, I want thumbs up or thumbs down from everybody watching. And Tass, I want your thought on this, because this was a topic brought up it was going around like crazy last month. And I just want to ask everybody, how many of you like, this is a scary question because I know the industry. Jack, he's already like, I'm in. I like it. How many of you
appropriate?
How many of you like the federal government involved in your business? Thumbs up if you like it. Thumbs down if you do not like the federal government.
I like the fact that I can get the PPP.
Well, it's just thumbs up or thumbs down. How many of you like the federal government involved in your business? Thumbs up. Or I don't like the federal government involved in my business, thumbs down. And if you want to put an explanation next to your thumb, that's fine too. So.
I don't know. Are those chocolate twist cones?
Down, 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 down. A little bit of poop. Down, down.
Someone's pulling their leg.
Down, down, up, down.
No, that was a middle finger down.
Down, 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 down. Can we use the middle finger now? No.
Well, you can, but it may be censored. No, I'm just kidding.
Down. Didn't even want the PPP, I think. All right. So for all of you that put the thumbs down, look, it's not a trick question. How many of you were happy to get the PPP or the EIDL money from the federal government? How many people were happy getting the PPP money or the EIDL loan from the federal government? And put a thumbs up or thumbs down. It's not a trick question. If you were not happy getting the PPP, then I would say, well, why did you apply for it? And then I think you're going to say, by the way, I'm not saying I'm happy with the federal government being involved or not involved, but I'll tell you my point in a minute. But if you weren't happy getting the PPP, why did you apply for it? And then you're going to say, well, because the government shut us down and we were forced to get money. But the federal government didn't shut you down. Your local government shut you down, not the federal government. And that's the thing that I want to make sure that you understand, because if the federal government shut us down, well, how come I was wide open and you were shut down if it was a federal thing? In Florida. So, here's my point to this. My point is this. I'm going to just call it out. Jason Flame put a post out there on Century Martial Arts, I think. Something about, look, Biden's the new president and as our whatever. And I'm not getting political here. I'm making a point, and this just happens to be the point. Biden's in, and by the way, if I don't know if there's ever been more divisiveness in this country than ever. But as martial artists and as smart people, and let me just ask you this. Put a thumbs up if you're an idiot. Put a thumb down if you're not an idiot. If I were to ask that question, are there any idiots watching this? Thumbs up if yes, I am an idiot, and I go to a meeting every Tuesday, and I'm working on it.
Oh,
or, no, I'm not an idiot. But then the next question is are there idiots in this world? Are there idiots in this world? And yes, there are idiots in this world. But the majority of people, we just don't stop to think. We just don't stop to think sometimes and take a step back because we let our emotions start controlling our actions and our brain a little bit, and we don't think. We don't want government involvement, right, in our businesses as a whole, I don't think, right? We don't necessarily want that. But it's funny that you do when you need them, right? And the thing is it's not a black and white answer. And yet everybody gets so heated on things when, by the way, Trump wasn't all roses, but he wasn't all horrible either, right? It's up for a discussion. And the thing is it is what it is. Right. And then by the way, I love all of you guys who are talking about well, there's fraud and there's this and there's that. Well, they said the same thing, when Trump got in and Hillary didn't. There was collusion there. But us who really know nothing, and I hope you all understand that, nothing, right? Because you're just knowing what you're reading on the specific places you're reading or watching, right? Take a step back and just be smart about these things, especially in the positions that we're in, working in this industry, trying to impact communities and lives, because I do not get involved on Facebook very much. I just do not do it. As a matter of fact, I'll tell you right now that Shelby, our social media director, has my username and password, and she will post for me on Facebook sometime just because we try to keep some engagement up or whatever. I'm just not a social media guy, but I did post today on Jason Flames because it's just absolutely ridiculous when I see some of the posts that come across from specifically our industry. And you're just not thinking if you're filled with hate and by the way, I don't think you're very smart if you think you really know what you're talking about. Because you don't. You assume and you choose to believe certain groups or areas that I believe that because they're lying. They're lying. They're lying. We really don't know who's lying. And so sometimes at the end of the day, you can voice your concerns and opinions and you can protest. But my comment on the post, and this is where I'm going to leave it, is don't say, well, then we'll never make a difference if we don't protest or if we don't. Yes, you will. If you know how to do it in a peaceful way and an effective way. And the example I gave on my comment on Flame's post is, in our industry, we've all dealt with the irate parent or student that was just irate. Can you imagine if a parent felt that you cheated them or they didn't like the way you were doing something? Or the example I also used was, you scored a point. It was the final match in a tournament. And this kid got a point. You didn't see it. You scored it for someone else. And a parent rushes to you and is dropping F-bombs, telling you how you cheated. You're disgusting. You're this. How effective would that be? What would you do with that parent? You would escort them out. You would walk away from that, or you would knock them in the face, some of you, right? I don't know what you would do. However, if a parent came up to you and said, hey, listen, great job. However, look, I think you missed this. My son, got the sidekick in on the tournament thing. Or, hey, by the way, I really think that you're favoring certain kids my child feels a little left out, and it would be greatly appreciated if you could just listen to my concern and pay more attention to make sure that you give attention to all the students. Which one would go further and create more change? Well, the second one would, and you know it, and I know it. And yet, why do we spew all this rhetoric and this stupid shit out there with this hate and the vulgarity with, the industry that we're in as leaders? And I'm just going to say, you're wrong. You're 100% incorrect and wrong, and you're not getting anywhere. But some of you feel like you are because you attract like people. So you get support behind you and you start feeling proud about, what you're saying and what you're doing, but not with the people where it matters, is my point. And so when we talk about government involvement, the reason I did that is because this week I've been hearing all these people bragging, not in a bad way, about how they're getting another round of PPP. And they're happy. They're getting another round of PPP money. But a lot of these people a month ago were saying, it's absolutely ridiculous. The government should stay out of my business, this, that, and the other. Well, let's get the government out of your business then. Don't get the $50,000 in PPP. Don't get the $100,000, the $500,000 in our case that we got for PPP, right? So do I want the government involved in my business? In some aspects, yes, I do. In other aspects, no, I don't. And let's talk about that. And let's see how much they can get involved and why there's aspects where I'm glad that they are involved in a way and other aspects where I'm not. But it's not going to be yes, no, right? It's not going to be black and white. And I think all of you need to do that because it just bothers me as someone who is I would say we're leaders in this industry, right? And I'm on this show every week trying to help you guys and help school owners. And as an industry, we look like a bunch of idiots. That's what we look like. We look like a bunch of idiots. And half this country does as well. But I'm not overseeing half the country. I'm overseeing our industry. And I just want to call it out there.
And to your point, listen, I mean, we bantered the other day for 30 minutes on political stuff back and forth, just having fun about it, right? At the end of the day, you're not going to see that on any of my Facebook stuff. So even if you think it and whatever, just like we've talked about this forever, but politics and religion don't belong on your Facebook page. I mean, or on your social media stuff. That's my opinion. Do whatever you want to, but I just know that you're affecting 50% of the people that are with you, one way or the other. Whatever way you lean, that you're affecting people. So.
You're exactly, that's where you're just not thinking. I mean, we have enough obstacles already, right? The only people that care about your opinion maybe are the ones that are agreeing with it when you act in a certain way, right? I mean, I don't mind having a discussion and hearing different points if you can have a normal, respectful conversation and dialogue. But when you're just think about it next time, guys. This is our industry. And if anyone in our industry looks like an idiot, they're making us look like idiots. And my example to this is, and I said this last week, I don't know if I said it on this show, but we have an LOI already. We're expanding this year, right? We have an LOI. There's a new plaza being built, and we want to get in the plaza. Well, there's a restriction that we're working on overcoming, that they don't want martial arts schools in this new plaza in this great area. They don't want a martial arts school. Why? Because their experience with martial arts schools are unprofessional and they're fly-by-nights and they're out of business within a year. And we don't want it in our plaza. So we're building the case that we're not one of those, right? And I don't want anyone else to be one of those either. So even if I'm the most selfish guy in the world, I have a responsibility to help you guys be more successful because it's only going to help me.
That's right.
But by the way, if they wanted to go onto the largest martial arts page in the world, Century's martial arts page, and say, well, let's look at your industry and let's see what's on there, they're not letting us in. They're not letting us in, guys. So can we get smarter here? And by the way, you're entitled to your own opinion, and you can share your opinion. Just do it in a respectful way, right? Thank you, and God bless America. I didn't know how to end that task.
Oh, that was good, Betts. That was good.
So, by the way, I think that's going to help the schools too, but I think you guys need to focus on what we talked about earlier, but I wanted to get that out there. Any thoughts or anything else, Tass?
Yeah, man. I mean, look, it depends on what side of the fence you play ball, right? I mean, at the end of the day, you either enjoyed what happened on Wednesday or you didn't enjoy what happened, but it happened and we move forward. It is what it is. And we whatever hand you're dealt, you figure out how to play it and you move forward. And we had that conversation the other day. I said, for years, I would say, well, I'm going to wake up tomorrow and it doesn't matter who's president. It's not really going to change my life and have that big of an impact on my life one way or the other. And then there's and then we talked about taxes. But and then it was, I said that to you and you said, well, potentially if they raise taxes, right? But here's the deal. And then there's going to be the naysayers that say, well, you just wait and see what's coming. Well, we don't know what's coming. I mean, we can think about what's coming until it starts to happen. I mean, we deal with this stuff on a daily basis. We move forward because you said this in your own in the towns that people are in. If you blame everything else and everybody else, there's no way you're ever going to grow because you are pointing your finger to everybody else, right? We need to take personal responsibility, and it doesn't matter who's president, right? As an example, I'm still going to go enroll new students. Doesn't matter because it's not that I don't have control of that, right? I tried, I put in my vote, did my civic duty, but here's what we're dealt with. I'm still going to get new students. I'm still going to run my business. I'm still going to focus on that because if you're focused on these other things that don't matter in your business, you're occupying mental space and you're not moving forward in your business, which is why I suggest everybody watch Undercover a Billionaire, by the way. I'm going to throw that in because it's a great show. If you've watched it, fantastic. If you haven't, they're literally dropped off. These high profile people, they're dropped off with a vehicle with gas, $100 bill, no shelter, and a cell phone with no context. And they've built these massive empires. But the argument is, well, you have all this money, so you should be able to do that. Well, then they put them in a town where they got to go undercover, can't contact any of their contacts, start with a $100 bill, a car with gas, right, and no shelter, and a cell phone with no contacts. And you watch how they're struggling the first couple of days. These people who are millionaires, how they struggle just to find shelter and how not to spend the $100. And they can't even focus on their business plan right now because they have to have their priorities straight. And so when we operate that way and we think that way, our mind is over on something else and we're not focusing on our business. And the businesses where if that's what we do for a livelihood, that has to be our first priority where we focus our time, effort, and energy. There's nothing else.
Hey, and by the way, on that, let me give you this last story, everybody, that will help you tremendously. And this is a true story, a real story. We had an instructor, a great instructor, right? And wife got relocated and still great, was a student of ours since he was little. But anyway, he was a head instructor and we had opened a new school. He was running the school and it just wasn't going anywhere. It was when we opened the school, he was hitting, I want to say it was like 18, 19,000 a month it was doing. And it was like, hitting the 19s. And we had to have a meeting. And he said, the people in this community are just different here. Now, he had worked at other schools. He said, they're just different here. They don't want to spend this, or they don't want to do it. They don't want to upgrade into a higher program, right? And by the way, that's a different conversation, right? We don't force anybody to do that. But he said, it's just different. They're different. It's different. And I said, listen to me. Number one, they're not different. They're not different, okay? But I said, let's assume they are different. Let's assume they are. You got to focus on how you're going to be different now, because if you just believe your community is different, you're not going to change your community. So stop saying it. Just understand that. We can only change us and how we do things. I said, so figure out how we can adapt. And let's see what happens. Within 1 month, we went from doing 19, like consistently 19. The next month they did over 30 and they never went under 30. I mean, it never went back. And he just changed his mindset, because stop pointing the finger everywhere about, well, it's different here. It's different here. These people are different. The economy, the president, the this, the that. Stop it. You're not changing that right now. Right. So focus on, okay, it is what it is. How can I do it? Which is what you were saying, but it'll clear your mind up a little bit and get you to focus on the things you can control. And that's what you got to do.
And I think, you guys that are watching, guys, gals that are watching this, like, and I'm going to, this might be bold, but you guys are the upper echelon of people that are like you said, the Century Group. If we went and had the same conversation in the Century Group, you're going to see a whole bunch of different posts, right? And so it's up to us. It's up to you guys to be the leaders. It's up to us to set the example, because when you're sitting, and we know that the majority of martial arts schools do less than $8,000 a month in their school. 90% of the schools do less than that. That's a problem. And so if you're in the top 10% or top 5% or top 2%, it's our job. We teach this, right? The rising tide lifts all the boats. So let's get everybody to come up with us. And Metz said it. It's most often it's a mindset shift that needs to happen. And we're just so close-minded, and we don't open our minds. And so by all of us leading by example and leading the way and taking the charge, man, we can help everybody else to create that different mind shift that they need, or that mindset that they need to break into the next level of their business, because it's for everybody, and whatever success is for you, right? More students, more money, whatever it is. But as an industry, we've got a long way to go. We have a long way to go to pull everybody else up with us. And we do that by making sure that we're being the leaders,
There it is. Well said, Mr. Tassoul.
Well, thank you, Mr. Metzger. And I don't know who Louise is, but it says, geez, Louise, can we just move on from the election and the pandemic soon? I don't know if he was referring to us talking about it or just but if he's talking about Mrs. Yeah, I'm sorry, Kenzie Flame. If I was reading the person below. If that's the case, if it's about you and I, no, we're not going to stop talking about the pandemic and the election. That'll be the next one. Kidding.
Well, I would love to move on from the pandemic, absolutely. And I moved on from the election yesterday at noon. It's
11:50
or a couple months ago, right? Because Tasso owes me a steak dinner.
That's right. That's right.
And by the way, it's not opposing views. Can we share that real quick?
Yeah, if you want to. Well, according to Ms. Kinsey, we need to move on from the election. But yeah, you can share it here, man.
We don't. It's just about. It is what it is, right? Like, there's a lot of people saying there was fraud, this, that, and the other. Okay, there was fraud. Okay, there wasn't fraud. But it's been said in every election for 150 years, right? There was fraud. There wasn't fraud. Maybe there was, maybe there wasn't. But Biden's going to be the president. Move on now. And Tass, you were thinking, wait, maybe he won't. There's going to be evidence. I don't know if he gets sworn in, right? And I don't know if he's getting. And I said, he's getting sworn in, right? Whether I like that or he likes that is irrelevant. There's a trend here. It's not going to stop the train. It's just, it is what it is. Fair or unfair, it is what it is. Now, if you have proof or you have a voice it in a respectful way that will get things done, not anger and smashing buildings and rushing capitals. You know what I mean? It's like, come on. I just, did we ever get the thumbs up or thumbs down on if idiots exist or not? Did we get that? Or I don't remember.
Most of them were thumbs down. Someone asked that